I need to get out of my slideshow here real quickly and get it on the right screen so that I can share screens. Do me a favor, Allison, turn off that recording. Well, it doesn't matter. Hold on. I'm just going to get this switched around so that when I.
Okay. Do I need to turn off the recording so it shares correctly?
Nope. I'm just going to go ahead and share screen and fire this up, and hopefully I have aimed at the right screen. So hold on here just a second, and then I'm assuming you can splice this, right?
I don't
know. They're really easy to edit, so you should be able to. Yeah. Okay. If not, that's okay. The recording can have my little getting set up thing here, and that's okay. Be informal. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Allison. Did you want to do official kind of thing, or?
For those of you who are watching the recording, this is the Honors PreLaw Roadshow, and we have the wonderful Martha Kirby joining us today. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us about pre-law.
Absolutely. And first, I'm going to ask Allison, I may not be sharing the right screen. Can you look and tell me, do you have just just the slide, or do you have?
I have the editing mode.
Okay, hold on.
So not just the slide.
How are we doing now?
Looks great.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry about that. So my name is Martha Kirby. I am the academic advisor for the Department of Political Science in my role there, because so many of our students go to law school or are interested in it. I also do a lot with pre-law advising, and so have gotten involved at a regional and national level with that as well. Currently serving as the president of the Midwest Association of Pre-Law Advisors and chair-elect of the Pre-Law Advisors National Council. So I'm in touch with law school admission personnel from throughout the country, and also work closely with folks at the Law School Admission Council, and all that connection kind of helps me help University of Iowa students as they're going through the process of thinking about law school, how to apply to law school, thinking about their choices and final choices in choosing a law school as well. So hopefully we're going to go through pretty quickly and then see if there are any questions, some basics, kind of what is recommended preparation for law school, what does the application process look like, so you know in advance what you're getting into and what to plan for, and also some pre-law resources both on this campus and national resources that are available to students. So quickly, the American Bar Association has a great pre-law site that has a really nice, succinct explanation of the core skills, values, knowledge, and experience that you should think about in terms of preparing for the study of law and the practice of law. I'm not going to go through each one of these. I would encourage you to go on, if you just Google American ABA pre-law, you're going to get this page, okay? And then what they're going to do is give you a brief explanation of each one of these. This is not about what courses you should take. In fact, the first sentence of this page says something to the effect of, there is no single right path to prepare for a legal education. They really mean it, and I got that a little bit wrong, but they really mean that, and there's no specific thing you need to do, but there are a variety of things to think about in terms of those skills, knowledge, values, and experience. And so I think it helps to read this early, not just the bullet points, but the explanations that they have on the website, so you can get a better idea and link the things that you're doing in your classrooms and outside of the classrooms that are helping you build these identified areas. So take a look at that. I think it's a really helpful framework. So there is no one right major. You can study anything and go to law school. You could be a dance major and go to law school. If you're going to be a dance major and go to law school, I suggest taking some philosophy courses, some political science courses, some writing courses, maybe some economics, to get some other skills built, academic skills built. But truly, the law schools don't care what your major is. In most cases, what the content is not what they're concerned about. It's that you're learning how to think through different disciplinary lenses, learning how to solve problems through different lenses. So, and applying different problem solving skills. Lawyers are problem solvers. People hire lawyers in order to solve problems that they can't solve themselves. And so developing problem solving skills, developing an understanding of how different people come to decisions can be very helpful. Also, law schools don't care if you ever have a course with law in the title. Ask my students who are now at Columbia or Harvard or the University of Iowa or any number of law schools around the country. Do they expect that you have studied the law before they get to them? Absolutely not. Can you? Sure, if you want to take a few courses, but then remember they're going to ask you to forget a lot of what they taught you in undergrad, that somebody in undergrad said this is the law. So do understand that they will teach you what the law is. They want you to be prepared to understand what they're teaching you. Also use, we were talking before we started here with some of you about the University of Iowa degree program is quite flexible. So if you're not sure what that flexibility looks like for you, sit down with your academic advisor, ask them to map it out, ask them what it looks like in terms of elective credit that you have. So you can really think about how to shape your academic program, both within your major and general education program. And by the way, forget checking boxes to get done with the gen ed. Leave them alone for a little while if you don't find something interesting, and then find courses along the way as you develop different interests that will satisfy the gen ed. No, you don't need to check the boxes to finish those and just get them out of the way. They're a nice way to explore different disciplines, certainly, but you might, just work with your advisor to think about how to approach this well. But look at writing, research. Do you need a second major or minor certificate program, and is that going to look good? No, the law schools don't care if you double major or triple major. They're concerned with your entire academic program in terms of what you've taken, how you've developed, and the types of courses you've taken. So just, don't worry about trying to second guess what an admissions committee wants. You'll always be wrong about that. Take things that are going to interest you and challenge you along the way. A lighter course load. Many of my honor students come in with a lot of credits earned out of high school and think, well, maybe I'll lighten my load so I can do better and that'll help my grade point. That's not going to help you for two reasons. Number one, a lighter load, a good GPA on a lighter load doesn't demonstrate to the admissions committees that you can meet maximum challenge at the undergraduate level. It's also then not training you for the rigors that you're going to encounter in law school. So is it okay to have a light semester every once in a while if something else is going on? Sure, that's okay. But should you consistently lighten your load to try to improve your coursework or your grade point or take lower level courses? Absolutely not. That's a problem. Okay, so constant, consistent challenge and appropriate challenge at appropriate times in your academic career. Don't leap ahead to that upper level con law class in the political science department, which is a fantastic class, but not a very great class if you haven't really had much time to develop your academic profile here on campus. And also, there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about BAs versus BSs. Does one look better than the other? No. They are differently purposed. Law schools don't care. If somebody tells you that law schools care or prefer if you have a BS versus a BA, they're wrong. Come talk to me. I'll get you in touch with law school admission personnel if you want to hear it straight from the source. But no, a BS is not going to look better than a BA. But again, this is about developing your own education, not developing into something you think somebody else wants you to be. So we want to be careful that we're really looking at what you want to develop in yourself and less about what you think law schools want, okay? Okay, so how to build your professional profile, also very important. You have the academic side of things, you have the professional side of things. All of this is important in the law school application process because it's important for you to be developing, and that's why they care about it, right? So what should you be doing? whatever is most interesting to you or necessary to you. Sometimes students need to work all the way through. Law schools understand that. If you don't have as much time for student organizations and leadership experiences and internships that might be unpaid because you have to work to earn your way through college, they get that. They're not going to ding you on your professional profile for that. But if you have to work your way through college and need to work a lot of hours, then think about finding positions that are going to allow you some growth in that position, maybe work your way into a management position while you're working, so that you have some longevity, but also you have some increasing levels of responsibility, and you can demonstrate that on your resume. Student orgs, of course, are great, not only because they get you around other students and doing interesting things and contributing to your community, but you're building your own interests and developing those through your student organizations. You know all of this. Volunteering versus interning versus, really depends on the industry. Where in business, boy, you better have that internship they're always talking about, right? But in political science, that could be volunteering on a campaign. That could be, that could be an unpaid internship. It could be working as a volunteer in a nonprofit organization where you're building levels of experience. So again, whatever you choose to do outside of the classroom, and do get engaged. It just makes your undergraduate education and experience just so much more fun and meaningful. But whatever you do, challenge yourself. Do what you're doing deeply. The law schools don't care if you have 10 different involvements. In fact, if you have a bunch of things but never did much in any of them, that doesn't look good to them. It's not quantity. This is about quality. Okay. And do you have to get some exposure to the law? No. They hands down, they say, if it doesn't matter if you've ever stepped foot in a law office or not. However, would it be helpful to have some exposure to the legal setting before you decide to dive into 3 years of an expensive education, not knowing if you actually like the legal profession? Yeah, probably a good idea. And that can be done through some job shadowing, or hey, even just well, I guess once the pandemic is over, the courtrooms are generally open to the public. You can go and see what that looks like, what a courtroom setting looks like, just by sitting there and listening in. You can ask questions of alumni from the university, and go to the law school visit days and learn more. So lots of ways to learn about what it means to study and practice the law without actually having a job in a law firm. But hey, if you can get a job in a law firm, great, you'll learn more that way too. So personally, just crafting your personal and your professional profile, very important. Some basic ones. Keep your record clean. I mean, I guess I hate to even bring that up, but it is important. We do, law schools are used to seeing infractions, particularly out of undergraduate, particularly around alcohol use and underage, and that. Try to avoid that. If you have one, it's not going to keep you out of law school. If you have two, probably won't keep you out of law school. If you have a string of them, then you've got problems. And that's because we're talking about a disrespect for the law and a pattern of behavior at that point, and that becomes an issue to the law schools. So anything that you get has to be explained later. So try to keep your nose clean. Think about your social media presence from here on out. That becomes really important. And well, it is partly about what you're doing, but publicly, how you choose to represent yourself can have some indication of how you would choose to represent any community of which you're a part, and the care you take in your own image out there is some indication of the care you would take in representing a law school, representing a law firm. So it's really about that. When you put it out on social media, it's relatively public. So do think about that along the way. And take care of your mental health. Really think about what you're doing with substances. and think about keeping yourself in check that way. If you need support, get it now. Learn to use mental health services to your advantage now. We see an uptick from students going from undergrad to law school in depressive and anxiety disorders, and there's a pretty big uptick. So much so that law schools are starting to embed mental health counseling within their law schools, so that they have people right on site. My suggestion for students is one thing you can do now to build your professional profile: learn to take care of yourself, learn to be kind to yourself, learn how to manage whatever you have going on in your life, and seek the help that you can get at the undergraduate level when it's still, you have a big safety net right now. And it's a great time to build those types of skills as well. General conduct, on campus, this is just the basics. You know this, go to office hours, sit up front in class. If you're going to go to class, turn off your phone, be polite. If you're going to show up, then show up. Faculty notice that, and you're going to need letters of recommendation. But the other thing is, it's not just that you're going to need letters of recommendation later. You want people to notice you in a very positive way so that you're pegged for research opportunities and special things that might be going on in a department. I know our Department of Political Science does this all the time. Kind of things go around, who do you know that might be good for this? That happens at this university in all sorts of different ways. So be that person that's there in class, participating, sit up front, go to office hours, or as much of that as you can stand given your personality, but at least border on the end of, if I were up in the classroom, how would it make me feel to have, and you know what I mean. Just engage. You'll learn more and you'll make better connections, and it just is a good idea. And last thing, keep undergraduate debt down. Regardless of what kind of scholarships you get, law school is very, very expensive. So be sure you keep that debt down. Okay, and then we talked about this a little bit, just learning more, network as much as possible. And this comes from here on out. And the reason you want to do this, you want to learn as much as possible. And if you're networking with other people that are interested in going to law school, like through Phi Alpha Delta, the pre-law fraternity, and other opportunities, you're going to learn a lot from them. I know a lot about going to law school and the process, but not from the student end. And so the students learn so much from each other that I could never teach them, because it's been a long time since I was 20. So what you learn from each other is so important in that networking. I mean, there are students who are vacating internships and part-time jobs at law firms locally, and their bosses are often saying, hey, who do you know who might be good here? So there are a lot of different reasons to network, but that's one of them. And the law schools do like to get to know you and know your interests. And so take advantage of the recruiting events. The law school admission folks, there's small staff at each school, and they take notes on who they're meeting, and they remember people. They're real professionals at what they do. So the more opportunity you have to get known by the law schools you may be interested in attending, it's a great idea for networking. They actually do care who you are and what your interests are. So let them get to know you as you start getting ideas about where you might want to go. We have a law school fair on campus I think I've got it scheduled for September 28th, maybe this year. Information will go out about that. As long as it can be in person this fall, we're at least booked for it. We'll see where that goes. If we have to pull back, we'll do a virtual event. But again, we should be going back online with a lot more in-person stuff. And those recruiting events, great opportunity for you to get to know folks. Okay, so preparation for academic and personal rigors of law school, that's throughout your undergraduate years. The application process is about an 18-month process from the point at which you start studying for the LSAT until you matriculate in a law school. So that's what I'm not going to take a very deep dive into. My slides are really dense, but I'm just going to give you a quick timeline as to what this looks like. So first, it is expensive to apply to law school. The law school admission test costs $200 for each take. Credential Assembly Service is the online application service everybody uses to apply to law school. That's $195. Law school application fees are anywhere from $0, this is for individual law schools, $0 to around $100. Pro tip, if you go to law school fairs and visit their booths, they'll give you fee waivers. So know that. And Credential Assembly reports are $45 for each school that you have an application sent to. So that can add up pretty quickly. And so again, keep undergraduate debt down is a good thing. Now, nicely, the Law School Admission Council does have a fee waiver in place. It's good for 2 years from the point it's awarded. You must demonstrate extreme financial need. So I usually tell students, if you're Pell Grant eligible, you might possibly qualify for this, but that's kind of the benchmark. You do need to demonstrate extreme need, and it takes a while to get this decision, but the funding includes funding some assistance for preparation for the LSAT, and so you want to apply for this well before you're going to start prepping for the LSAT. So that's important to know. And again, you can just the information is available on the LSAC website, or you can talk to your advisor about that. But just keep that in the back of your head, that about probably 20 months before you want to start law school, you're going to apply for a fee waiver so that you're ready to go with that. The application process timeline, and this changes for everybody's a little bit different. This is a traditional timeline I've laid out here that would be if a student were planning to apply to start law school the fall after their senior year. Most law schools only start a fall class. A few will start in the spring, but in general, you should plan to start in a fall semester for law school. And so you would, in the typical timetable, I say typical, about 50% of students go directly into law school from undergrad from the University of Iowa. About 50% of our University of Iowa students who go to law school wait a year or more. So in your third year, I like students to look at a logic course to help build some skills for the formal reasoning section of the LSAC, called the analytical reasoning section, actually. And then in late fall, you'd be applying for that fee waiver if you need it. Winter break, you're going to get ready for the LSAT, get organized and start studying. You're going to prep during the spring of your junior year and take the LSAT in the summer. Fourth year, you're going to retake the LSAT if you need it. And then applications should be in that fall of your junior year or senior year. Very important. Applications are due in the spring for the following fall, but by the spring, they've given away their scholarship money. They're usually on a wait list. So the early bird gets the worm here. They operate on rolling admissions. They start accepting applications in September. They start reviewing and offering admission in the later fall semester. And so you want to get that, understand that timing. That's not really a transparent, it's not screened out there anywhere on the LSAC website. And then you should truly visit schools before you decide on them. We'll get into that. The law school admission test is currently running on what they call the LSAT Flex because of the pandemic. 3 35-minute multiple choice sections. There's a writing sample that you do afterwards. Writing sample is not scored. Reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, better known as the logic games, and logical reasoning, strangely, not the logic game section. So those are the 3 sections. You'll have one of each one right now. Beginning in August of 2021, they are adding back in a test section. You won't know which it is. You'll get an extra section of one of them. They're running out of original test questions. They've got to get some back in for statistical analysis. So they, when they had to go to the LSAT Flex, they had to take out the test section. So that's getting thrown back in there in August. So 2 35-minute sections, a small break, and then 2 35-minute sections is what it's going to be August moving forward. There is the possibility that they will stick with LSAT Flex. it's been going well for LSAC. So it may be the LSAT Flex you take on your own computer in your own space with an online proctor. Somebody's watching you through the whole thing through the computer. They found that it's been a very secure situation for them, and that was the main concern. And it's a little bit more flexible for students. Some students would prefer an in-person. They've gotten that feedback as well. So they're exploring options right now so that when the pandemic is in a place where they can start doing in-person again, you might see some of that. Again, typically June after junior year, but it's given several times during the semester. I'm not going to name a number of times because they keep changing it, but it's somewhere around 6 to 8 times per semester, per year, that they offer the LSAC, the LSAT right now. So that timetable, the first take in June, gives you time to study over the summer if you need to retake, and then still have your score in time to apply on time. And then that writing section you just do anytime after, but they won't release your score until you get your writing sample in. So, and that one's important. It's not scored, but it's used by the law schools because it's their only sample of raw writing. Everything else that you send in through your application should be extremely polished. So the writing sample is their one opportunity to see how you write on the fly. Quickly, preparation, 2 to 3 months, 10 to 15 hours a week. To get to where, that's my recommendation. You should be aiming for about 200 hours of LSAT prep consistent over time. It just is a test that takes time to learn how to take. Yes, you can pay a lot of money and take a commercial course. Do you need to? My students generally tend to do pretty well on self-study, but some of them find that they would rather have a little extra boost. So if you start early enough in your test prep and decide you're not getting far enough on your own or finding you need a little more structure, then you'd still have time to, and if you have the money, to pay for a commercial test and see if you can get a little boost that way. But there's a lot of free resource available. The LSAC teamed with Khan Academy, and Khan Academy now offers free online test prep for the LSAT, so you can check that out. LSAC has prep materials available for order through their website, including for $99, a bank of about 70 fully released full-length LSAT prep tests in their new electronic format. So a really good way to get a lot of study materials for very little money. I mean, $99 is a lot of money, but still less than you would pay for other resources. The LSAT is extremely important. It is the most heavily weighted factor in your admissions decisions. And so you don't want to skimp on the LSAT. And it's really important in the not just admissions decisions, but scholarship decisions as well. So you want to put the time into it so you can score to your ability. It tests ways of thinking, not content, and that takes some time to develop. Another reason not to take it early, to get it out of the way, because you really are developing those ways of thinking while you're a student here. So give it some time. Scored 120 to 180, right around 152 right now is the 50th percentile. That's the national median. Only 2.7% of test takers score 170 or above. The University of Iowa's median LSAT score is a 161. I don't know if I updated this for this year, but they don't change that much. Drake's median was about a 154. Yale, sits at about a 173. So that gives you some range of different types of law schools and different rankings of law schools and what their LSAT scores are. Can you get into Iowa with under a 161 LSAT score? Yes, that's their median. 50% of their students scored less than a 161. So understand what that means. Doesn't mean you need the 161. It means you be a little safer bet for admission with that 161. Okay, and I promised Allison I'd give her some time at the end, so I'm going to whiz through some other things here. Credential Assembly Service is the online application service where you put in your transcripts, letters of recommendation, and your LSAT scores. And we talked about the fee waiver already. So every law school uses this system to apply to law school. You will need letters of recommendation. You should be cultivating relationships with faculty now so that people can write for you that know you. Should be, I mean, think of this rule of thumb, somebody who has the power to flunk you or fire you. That's who should be writing for you, and you're asking to get admitted to a competitive academic program, so you want people who can speak to your ability in academically, okay? And even think about the kind of work you do in different classes. Maybe somebody who can speak more to your problem solving analytical ability, maybe somebody who can speak more to your writing ability. So thinking strategically about which directions you want to go with letters of recommendation in that way. These should not be family friends. These should not be the neighbor, the federal judge, whatever you, these need to be people who know you, not your family, okay? Big titles do not impress the law schools. They're much more interested in people who really know you. A supervisor is great as well. Many students want 2 letters with an optional 3rd. In that case, I usually recommend 2 faculty, 1 professional reference. I usually don't write for my students because I do not evaluate their work. And so I can write a glowing letter about my absolutely fabulous students, but I can't give much substance to that in terms of what's most important to the law schools in terms of their academic preparation. There are some exceptions to that. If I really get to know a student well that I've worked with in a number of ways with student organizations or something, maybe. But usually I want my students to have the best letter possible, and I can write beautifully, but it's probably not going to be for me because we want them to be more substantive than that. Let's see here. And my recommendation when you go to get letters and request them, you don't have to do this, but if you give a copy of your grade report, your resume, and a draft copy of a personal statement, and let them know, and an approach like, do you feel you know me well enough to write a positive letter on my behalf, is a really soft sell. And you know, people will want to promote you if they know you well, right? But it's a nice, comfortable way to approach a faculty member, and then you could give them the rest of this information. Say, here's some more information that might be helpful for you if you'd like to review it before making a decision. That way it does 2 things. It gives them the information they need. It puts you in the driver's seat in terms of your own application process. It prevents a lot of back and forth where faculty are going to say, can you send me something, this and that? And then you're obligating them to a lot of back and forth, and for busy people. But it also then you control a little bit of how that letter is written, because you want your whole package to really well represent you and your purpose. And so if they have all the rest of the information, you don't have some letter going off on some weird direction that doesn't really represent you. Does that make sense? So, and then the last thing about this is always waive your rights to see the letters. The admissions committees, you would have the option to not waive your rights to see letters. That would mean if you asked later to the Law School Admission Council and said, I want to see the letter of recommendation written by Professor Smith, if you do not waive your rights, they can show you that letter. The problem is those letters tend to be weaker letters then, and the admissions committees don't put a lot of stock in them. So waive your rights to see those letters. Okay, you also have to write a personal statement, my students' least favorite thing to do, because we all have trouble talking about ourselves. So this can be very straightforward. Follow the instructions, make sure you're personalizing for each law school and saving it in a document that has a title that you can then know which document you're sending to which one. Don't make the mistake of sending my dream is to go to Drake Law School to the University of Iowa. And then don't worry about what you think they want to hear. Write who you are. Answer their prompts. They all give you some prompts, but they want to know who you are. That's what their interests are. So go that direction. My few little tips: don't wax philosophical about the law and tell them what the law is. They know, and they're pretty sure you don't yet, and that's why you want to come to law school. So don't tell them their business in your personal statement. Try not to quote famous people. They've heard every quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg and from Abraham Lincoln and everything else. They want to know who you are and what you have to say, not what Abraham Lincoln had to say. And keep it not necessarily conversational, write formally, but not to the extent that you're stringing a bunch of quote unquote, fancy words together into a sentence that then does not sound like a human being would ever say that sentence, right? Those get really annoying to read, so don't try to sound smart. You guys are smart, just write, okay? There are some great personal writing classes that our writing program offers under CNW, that's Creative Nonfiction Writing, and you might take a look at those if you'd like to learn more about crafting a personal narrative, okay? And let's see, the resume, start developing it now, and then this is a piece of your writing as your application that should be perfect. There should be no mistakes on it because you have time to get that mistake proof. So do that, and work with somebody at the Career Center or your advisor to just make sure that that looks good for a law school application. Sometimes you want to promote a little bit, something a little bit differently on a law school resume than you would a professional resume or highlight different things. So you want to work with somebody with that before submitting that. If you happen to have any trouble along the way with student academic misconduct, student code of conduct violation, some kind of a legal issue, you're going to have to provide what's called an addenda. And I've written some things here. Anybody on the recording can slow it down and look at it. So everything is here. But you know, basically just say what happened and be honest. Do you have to include expunged records from juvenile records? Yes, unless they specifically say you don't. So you need to read the questions on the applications carefully. And please don't listen to people giving you blanket advice on this. If you have questions, ask the law school. Asking them a question about this is not going to keep you out. So in the application process, if you have a question on their particular application, ask your advisor first, and then ask the law school that you're applying to. Okay, there are other things that you might want to write an addenda for. Sometimes, particularly during the pandemic, boy, has it been a rough time, right? And transcripts are looking a little wonky. And so if you want to write something to explain a semester that's kind of out of the norm for you, or maybe you had a major health issue, so you know, one semester is all B's where you're usually all A's, transcripts tell a story, and so they're going to look at that and say, something happened there, I wonder what it was. You don't want their creative genes creating your story for them. You want to explain to them what happened. So anything in your application that would raise a question, you're going to explain in an addenda. You don't want a really thick application, but you want to make sure you cover your bases, and your pre-law advisor can help you with this. Choosing a law school, lots of different things to think about. Do you want to live in a certain area after you're done? Are there certain specializations you're looking for that are certain hallmark programs at certain schools? Is ranking important to you? How much can you spend? Do you want a lot of reach nationally, or do you want to stay in a particular area, meaning you could look at schools that have more of a regional reach versus schools with more of a national reach? All of these kinds of things, and where are you going to be positioned in your cohort? Sometimes it's not the best idea to go to the best rated school you can get into if you're going to be at the bottom of the heap, not get scholarship money, which by the way, scholarships are almost entirely merit-based, and then you're fighting for position with students with higher credentials than you have. So it may or may not always be the best idea to choose the highest ranked school that you can get into if you're just eking into it, if you might have greater opportunity and spend less money elsewhere. And that really depends on what a student's later goals are. So it's something to keep in mind. Paying for law school, the scholarships are primarily, but not exclusively, merit-based, and conditional or non-conditional, meaning if it's a conditional scholarship, they give it to you for one year and then say you have to meet this condition for us to continue it, or you might lose it, or you might have it reduced. Non-conditional, here's your package for 3 years. As long as you stay in academic good standing, you keep this scholarship. So that's the difference there. Almost entirely merit-based. They use this to attract the most qualified candidates to their law schools. This is different for the very top, that what we call the T14 kind of operates on a little different model. Most everybody else, the scholarship money is very much a business model. They call it a tuition discount. They are not handing you a check, they're handing you less of a bill. They're trying to seat the highest ranked class they can because it matters to their law school rankings, and unfortunately law school rankings matter to their livelihood. So it's a strange little system. You know, a lot of loans, there are no federal grants for law school. It is scholarships and loans. And so you really want to think about the costs and how much you're borrowing now along the way. I tell students never to count on loan forgiveness programs, because as we've seen over the past 5 years, boy, does it matter what administration is in office as to what might happen with loan forgiveness programs. And so I think it's important that you make a choice for a law school, and how much you can spend, not based on the hope that you'll get loan forgiveness if you're thinking about public service work. And then you cannot work in your first year of law school. And so it's extremely important to understand that, so that you're prepared for the rigor of the first year, but also financially prepared to get through it without a salary of any kind. And finally, at breakneck speed for Allison's sake here, there are some great resources out there on the web. The ABA PreLaw site is wonderful. ABA Standard Disclosures, boy, is this a great site. You can see all the career placement information for every accredited law school in the country. You can see all of their admissions information, their scholarship information. It's a wonderful resource. You could probably use some help from a pre-law advisor to, when you first start looking at these reports, to understand them a little bit better. So please reach out to me or a pre-law advisor that you have assigned to you if you have questions about how to use those reports. But one of the best places for data about law school that you can find. The Law School Admission Council, they continue to produce more materials, better materials, and they're starting into a webinar series now. The pandemic's brought out a lot of things that they're now doing. And so they're in fact in some ways getting into the pre-law advising space by doing pre-law webinars as well. They're just a fantastic resource. The LSAT is their test. They run the application process. And they're good folks there. I work with them pretty closely. So get to know that website. It's kind of a one-stop shopping. Access Lex is a nonprofit organization. They're getting into a little bit more of the pre-law advising space as well, in doing some programming, and they do a great job. They also are really focused on financial issues with a legal education. They're a nonprofit organization. They're not going to try to sell you anything. They are a trusted player in the pre-law advising national space out there. We know them, we love them, they're doing great work, and they have an amazing war chest because they used to be a private loan company, have now changed to a nonprofit organization focusing on access to a legal education. There are many more resources. They're in diversity pipeline programs out there, and a lot of other things. Many of those are funded, by the way, by the Law School Admission Council or Access Lex, so you can get information about those on their sites. And then of course your pre-law advisor, the law schools are excellent opportunities to learn more, and they all love to meet undergraduate students who might be interested in their law school. Allison, I am out of breath, and I think I've gone through that at record speed. Does anybody have questions?
I actually do have a question.
Great.
So you had talked about earlier not lightening your load to get higher grades. What about if you're lightening your course load, but you are still like, you have a job and you are involved in extracurriculars?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Allison. And it's a good lesson in I should never speak in absolutes. And if anybody's speaking in absolutes to you, question them. So yes, I mean, if I have a student who has to work 20 or 30 hours a week and is trying to do other things as well and can have a little lighter load, of course, that makes perfect sense. You don't want to have a weak resume, weak involvement on campus, and be coasting and be a traditional age student without a lot of other responsibilities, and be taking just the bare minimum, 12 semester hours per semester. That would be where it would be problematic, okay? And then there's a consistency thing as well. So in the semester in which you're prepping for the LSAT and really devoting that time to it, if you want to cut down a little bit, that's okay as well. But the most important thing is that you prepare yourself well for the academic rigors of law school and the personal challenges of law school.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know of any pre-law organizations or programs that students can refer to get exposure that way on campus?
Absolutely. The one pre-law organization is the Phi Alpha Delta, is the pre-law fraternity. It's a professional fraternity, so not male, living in a frat house thing. And they have regular programming. They have a great executive board, so lots of opportunity for leadership. They have regular speakers come in from law schools and lawyers coming in to talk about their own careers, and some test prep companies occasionally will come in and talk about their programs, that type of thing. So yes, lots of opportunity through there. There are also student legal services sometimes have a student representative. If you've never looked into what Student Legal Services is, it's an interesting organization on campus. And it's an office on campus that is, I believe, entirely student run. And so there are opportunities to get involved there as well. But in terms of a student organization directly connected to pre-law, that would be Phi Alpha Delta. And their email is pad@uiowa.edu if you would like to email them and ask for more information.
Okay, well, we are going to move on to the final portion of this. So Martha, if you can stop sharing your screen, that'd be great.
Absolutely. There you are.
Awesome. There we go. Okay. And okay, so the other Honors Outreach Ambassadors and we are gonna go ahead and talk about how you can connect pre-law to honors, because Martha, she just, like, specifically, I think it was the first slide you showed about kind of like the skills and things you should be thinking about to help you prepare for law school. Those are things you definitely can connect to your Honors Experiential Learning. One way I have done this is I took a course last semester called the Legislative Policy Seminar with Professor Dietrich. And that is a course where you work with a group and you pick a policy issue and then you research that issue and different potential solutions for it. And then you make a recommendation about which solution of those is the best. And this is something that you do the entire semester. So at the end of the semester, you have like a 20 or 30 page document. And so it's a writing and research intensive class, which are two things that Martha talked about at the beginning of her presentation as skills that are helpful for law school. So I found that that was probably one of the experiences I've had while at the University of Iowa that has helped me the most in gaining some of those skills that law schools want to see their students have. So
I can go next. So I interned at the University of Southern California in their Security and Political Economy lab. And my name's Minella, by the way, and I was a researcher for them, and I got to do research on educational policies in sub-Saharan Africa. Not only was that like policy work and political science work, but I also learned how to code in R, which is really cool. And if you're interested in anything kind of computer or technology, coding is something that I think the future is what's going to be. So definitely look into that, because a lot of research that you would do has to do with coding.
For myself, I think something that Martha Kirby stated that's super important is getting to know your professors, getting to know your classmates, more than just on a professional level, but on a personal level as well, so that they understand who you are, what you intend to do in your future, and what you're interested in. getting to know your professors can lead to internships, even if they themselves aren't really into pre-law. Like, let's say you meet a creative writing professor and you're talking and you tell them about your interest in law and politics. Maybe they have a sister who's a judge, or they have a brother who's a lawyer, and they can connect you that way, and you can get internships through that way. Also, if you have a professor or a class that you're super interested in, a lot of the times they are looking for research assistants. So you can tell them like, hey, if you need any research assistance, I'm super available. I would love to work with you in the future. And a lot of the times they're interested. If they can't help you, they can refer you to someone else who might be able to help you.
Hi, I'm Vina. And for like, as far as my experience goes with like the honors program, I'm a first year student, a freshman. So I haven't been able to do much yet, especially because of COVID, because it has stunted everything that's happening on campus. And that may very well be a reality for like the next year, maybe the year after that. Hopefully not, crossing my fingers. But if that is, for sure, I like in my time in the honors program, I've definitely understood that they're super flexible. So just, you don't have to know what you're doing right away. You can definitely just like keep it on the back burner, like in your brain, just keep thinking about it, mulling over it, and then thinking about like what you might want to do, what will lead you to enriching yourself in whichever field you want to work in, whether it be study abroad or internships or research or whatever it is.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions specifically about connecting pre-law to honors? Otherwise, you can also ask Martha questions if you've had one come up. Okay, well, I think that is everything that we have tonight. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you, Martha, for joining us. We greatly appreciate your willingness to come talk to us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.